All right. If you've been following me on Twitch or Twitter or anywhere, you've probably seen the memes going around of like, I hate Mathmech so much, and people making fake accounts on Facebook sending me friend requests named Mathmech Circular, or subscribing to me on Twitch, or giving gift subs to every single Mathmech name imaginable. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why I hate Mathmech so much. And I want to start by saying that it's actually not just Mathmech. I kind of despise the entire Cyber's hyping these days. Except for Salamangreat. Salamangreat's based. I think the reason why I dislike Cyber so much, and I think Mathmech is just the biggest culprit of those problems, is that for me personally, it incorporates most of the problems that I have with modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Not all of them, but most of the things I criticize when it comes to modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Are all found within Mathmech/Cyber's decks. The first one that I'm also not going to touch on too much because we've talked about this a lot in the past is that almost all of the Cyber's decks end their games way too quickly. Like all of them have like this problem where I don't remember ever having a game against Mathmech that lasted more than 2 or 3 turns. Well, the Mathmech player has never had more than 2 turns because their turn 1 combo is designed to win the game on the spot, and their going second plan is to just go transcode, update jammer, access code for game, right? Their entire game plan, their design is to win in 1 turn. Either your first turn, when you go first, is too strong to handle. When you go second, you try to OTK immediately. If that doesn't work, you usually lose. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't like that type of design. Cyber's decks are not the only culprits of that. Let me be clear here. There's other decks that do the same thing that I also don't enjoy as much. I would enjoy it more if games went a little bit longer, but this video is about Mathmech and Cyber's in particular. And then another thing that I don't like, I'm not sure if that's just a me issue, but I don't really like it when decks only are good because of one specific card. And of course, we're talking Mathmech Circular here. This is a Mathmech specific problem. I find it a very frustrating experience to play against a deck that only works if you draw one specific card or draw a searcher for one specific card, because it's like, of course they're likely to draw it, but they're not guaranteed to have it, right? Statistically, some hands they should not have it. So every game I feel like, why did they have to have it, dude? Why did they have to have that one card? You know, why couldn't they just like not have it this time? I think it's very frustrating to play against a deck where you're like, if they just don't have that one card, I would have won basically for free, but because they had it, of course they had it, you know, that I can't do anything. It's kind of like how Fluandereeze is like, you know, everyone knows that deck is bricky, so like whenever you lose to it because they draw their normal combo hand, Rabina or whatever, you know, it's just like, it's just annoying. It's just randomly annoying. I feel like everyone always expects justice when your opponent is playing a deck that could theoretically brick by just simply not drawing that one specific card. You know, just don't draw that circular, you can't win the game. I feel like is just not a very cool dynamic, because like it's just asking for one of the two players to be frustrated. Either I'm frustrated because my opponent drew the circular, or my opponent is frustrated because they didn't draw the circular, which they play so many copies of. So I think it's just not a very healthy design to create a deck or to make a deck viable, because that's usually their way of making a deck that previously was mediocre into a relevant deck by just giving them that one super busted card. I just don't think that's a cool design trait of making a deck viable. I think they should have done it differently. I think you should make an archetype either good overall, not just slap that one super busted card in that. I'm not a big fan of that. Speaking of one card doing way too much, this is a very Cyber's problem. I associate this to the Cyber's type. Let me know if you don't, but I think link climbing or one card doing way too much is a very Cyber's kind of thing. You just like start with one monster and you end up playing for minutes and it just doesn't end, and you end up link climbing into oblivion. And I think my biggest issue with that is I think that is what ruins the link mechanic for me personally, because I feel like it invalidates the whole point of links, right? The whole point of links is that a link 2 monster should require 2 monsters and therefore be more powerful than a link 1 monster. A link 3 requires more monsters than a link 2, therefore it's more powerful. A link 4 requires even more monsters, and therefore it's more powerful. Now, if you link climb, which by the way, if you're not familiar with the term of link climbing is basically when you start with one monster and then you link it off, and then that creates another body somehow, and then you make a link 2 and that summons another body, climb that up into a link 3. You're climbing. You get the idea, right? Like a Cyber's gadget, link it off into a Lingaribo, get the token, make a splash mage, bring back the Cyber's gadget, gadget, make a transcode, bring back the Splash Mage. Suddenly you have an access code talker out of one normal summon, and it's just like, access code talker is supposed to use up 4 monsters. Not just one level 4 stupid little gadget, or like one circular also gets you all the way up until access code talker. Like, why does it do that? Honestly, I thought about this a little bit this morning. Access code talker only feels that unfair to me when it's being cheated into play by not actually using enough monsters for it, right? I feel like every time access code talker is being summoned in a deck that actually needs to work for the 4 bodies, the card's not actually that problematic. And like a lot of decks that don't have link climbing don't even play the card. The only other example I could think of in recent formats that would cheat out an access code talker was like Tri Brigade, but that deck at least didn't have update jammer transcode talker with it. I feel like it really comes down to access code talker is only really a problem in like Cyber's decks, and I just don't like that because it puts link monsters in a very weird spot for me, where a lot of link monsters feel fine in almost any meta deck or almost any deck, except in Cyber's decks, where instead of actually requiring 3 or 4 monsters, it's just 1 monster, because for some reason they decided to make it Cyber's thing to link climb and completely just like don't care about which rank or link is printed on the link monster, because you can summon it. It doesn't matter. Like, it's a link 2, 1 card summons it. Link 4, 1 card summons it. Freaking Adignister is another example of like, why the hell, like I don't want to cry about it too much, but like, why am I getting into a Link 5 or Link 6 with 1 combo that takes 10 minutes? Like, what the hell is that design? I feel like one deck doing that could have been fine, but they just don't stop making them, right? It's like every Cyber's deck is just a different flavor of this, which is also why I feel like it just gets so boring. It's like, okay, Salamangreat was like the OG Cyber's combo deck, and that deck was pretty cool because it was like not 1 card combos, it was at least 2 card combos, and it didn't feel as oppressive. Like a Salamangreat endboard didn't auto win the game, which is I think the main difference. But like Adignister, right, is only ever good if the tower auto wins the game. So literally what you're doing is you're watching Adignister play for 10 minutes, unless you already know that you can't out it, and then you just scoop. And then Mathmech, same thing, 1 card Mathmech combo probably wins the game if it goes uninterrupted. Code Talker is another deck that just plays for hours and hours and like just ends on some unbreakable shit. It's just the Cyber's identity at this point that I have a problem with. I just don't like that type of design where literally the type's identity is to link for 10 minutes on your first turn and try to auto win the game. With the only exceptions that I can think of right now of like cool Cyber's decks, Salamangreat and Marincess, pretty much. Both of those decks still play for a long time on their first turn, which I understand that some people might also find that annoying, but at least Marincess and Salamangreat don't auto win on turn 1 with their combos. I feel like that is how I can accept that type of design, right? I can be okay with it if the end board is okay, right? I can watch you play for a bit, but it's like really annoying if I watch you play for a bit and then I simply just lose without even having a chance, which is the case with the full Mathmech combo and like other stuff like Code Talkers and whatnot. I don't know, I just find that annoying. It ends games way too quickly. A lot of those decks just need that one specific card, which is very frustrating, and then they play for way too long, link climb into whatever, and completely invalidate the link mechanic. I think that's what it comes down to. I didn't want to ramble about it for too long. Before we end it, let me say that I don't really even think that those decks are too strong. That is not my issue, but I do think, and I've said this before, I think it's not always about is something too powerful, is something too problematic to be considered unhealthy for the game. I think there's also certain designs that can be unhealthy for the game, not because they're too powerful, but simply because they're not really fun, right? And I think Cybers as a whole, as they are doing it right now, is not that fun. I've jokingly been saying they should just remove Cybers from the game and just errata Salamangreat to be Pyros and maybe errata Marincess to be Aquas. I don't think they would ever do something like that, but that's what I would do, dude. Just think of how many problems we would not have if that happened. No Ibli, no Firewall, no Mathmech combo, no Code Talker extra link, dude. It's a better world if they do that. But let me know if you agree. Let me know if you found this understandable. This is why people are memeing on me hating Mathmech. It is true, I hate it. It's not bothering me that much, but I figured I would let you know my thoughts on the Cybers archetype, and you tell me what you think about it in the comments down below. Until then, thanks for watching. Bye bye.